that sends medical workers overseas. According to reports, the State Department has revoked the visas of Brazilian Ministry of Health official Mozart Julio Tabosa Sales and former Pan American Health Organization official Alberto Kleiman. Rubio reportedly has not named other officials who were affected, but said they were from Africa, Cuba, and Grenada, and were quote-unquote complicit in the Cuba's forced labor export scheme. This comes as the Cuban government has blasted U.S. efforts to stop the medical missions, reportedly calling them a cynical excuse to go after its foreign currency earnings. Caribbean leaders have also previously rejected U.S. accusations of Cuban labor exploitation. Now we go back to our guest discussion with Mark Sutherland. He's a geopolitical commentator. Thank you, Mark, for staying with us. Now, how do you view this U.S.'s decision to revoke visas for officials tied to Cuba's medical programs, and do you think this is legitimate? What they are saying as the reason.
The concerns are about basically as you said, the exploitation about slavery. So let's just slavery in regard to these medical workers. So what would happen is that the doctors would go abroad to the countries that you have then talked about. They would then go abroad, and the concern would be that their wages would then be kept by the Cuban authorities, and that they may not receive the fullness of that wages, or they receive part, even though particular area of Caribbean deny that and say that they receive the fullness of their wages. So that is a concern. The other thing that we also have to remember that Marco Rubio's family, they come from Cuba. Cuba in the mid-50s, they then came from Cuba over to Florida. So they would then, understandably, he would, quite rightly, along with many other people in that area down to Miami, would have then personal stories to tell to then back all that up over time. So this is the reason. The reason is to turn around and say, when you've got the economy of Cuba, you're wondering about how you are then going to get money into the country. That is then one way to then do a stimmer, which is to take, the accusation is of taking that money from the people that are working in the medical field direct back to governmental authorities.
And Mark, with Cuba calling the U.S. actions an attack on its foreign currency earnings, how do you interpret the broader economic and political implications for Cuba's standing?
Well, the key is this: is under the Biden administration, many recently under Obama in regard to relationships with Cuba, then are being loosened. Remember, it's the ideology. We are looking at communism, and socialist ideologies. So that, understandably, is how America then views that. So this is them turning around and ramping up, because it also contributes. They are concerned about the way that these people are used. They are using that term in regard to from a slavery point of view. The other thing is that their families, etc., could be threatened back in Cuba if they do not go along with this. These are the other parts of this discussion around this whole subject, Asuma. So yes, diplomatically, it always leads to an interesting discussion, but the American authorities are very firm about this, and through historically, then we'll turn around and say this is why we're doing it. We don't have time even to go into the Cuban Missile Crisis as a way of saying historically